Hello and welcome back to the Smoke Room. We'll be continuing where we left off on Clifford's route. Now, before I continue, you all should know that the Clifford route, as in the entire thing, has been sort of overhauled a little here and there. And that's because George Squares basically took over the Clifford route now, given that Red is no longer working, with them. He has his own visual novel to take care of, which, if you recall, is Glory Hounds. So, yeah. So, there's just a few little things here and there that were changed or were added. One of them being the map. If you recall, when Samuel takes the map, if you do take it, he puts it inside of Clifford's belongings. And I chose basically to do that. However, and I don't recall this being a thing, but if you do that, Clifford does find out, obviously, but then you're given another prompt to take it. And when I played it, and it gets to the part that we're about to, continue from, Clifford makes a comment about talking to Avery, which is, the big, I think he's an elk, doctor, and telling him, what happened. However, when I had to replay it because the save was broken, Clifford didn't make that comment. He didn't, make any comment about the map. So I'm assuming that Samuel in this version doesn't tell, or doesn't make it known that, yeah, he took the map. Unlike the other one where Clifford knows. Clifford still knows that, Samuel wants to leave. He just doesn't know that he has the map. And basically everything else is mostly the same. There's an added scene in where Murdoch is telling the story at the campfire towards the beginning. There's some added, sound effects to you have the option to actually canoodle with Murdoch and Clifford together, or just with Clifford alone. Obviously, I chose both together because that's what I had. That's what happened in the previous version of Clifford's route, and pretty much everything else stayed the same. There's some background stuff that was added, some was removed, I think, but mostly everything is the same, just with that one map choice. I'm not really sure how that's going to change the outcome, though. I might have to ask George if that would change things. I'm not sure that he would tell me because, obviously want to keep, some secrets, but still. And it's okay if he doesn't. But anyways, yeah. So with that out of the way, let us continue Clifford's route and see what's in store for the gang in the Meseta. Is it a reservation or just a settlement? I kind of think it's a reservation because, it's being run by, a priest. And not a very good one, too. I did change the option where Clifford goes around the town talking to the people. Initially, I made it thinking that that he's doing, Clifford, which is, he's being cagey about what he's talking about, or not cagey, where he's just being sort of, like, oh, would a railroad coming through the town be a good thing? Instead, I changed it this time around to Clifford basically telling them straight up, like, oh yeah, they're gonna build a railroad through the town. And it went kind of the same, except that Tsela, which is the fox, and Yiska, which is the bear, which you actually get to see in this version of the of Clifford's route because they have sprites now. They were a bit more happy about being told. Well, Tsela not so much, but Yiska was actually like happy about the fact that you were telling him. But yeah, well, with that out of the way, let us continue. The outside of the inn looks more like a tenement house than a professional setup suited for comfort. And the inside of the inn isn't much to look at either. There is a lobby with the desk and keys flanked on both sides. Not so much a place for reception. The goose eyeing us warily doesn't look Meseta. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon. Do you need a room for the night? Our company will be staying for a week, if that isn't a problem. It shouldn't be. A week for one bedroom will cost you $21. Would it be alright if we have access to our rooms a little early? We'd run into several hardships on the road and would love an opportunity to calm ourselves and get our bearings. The goose shook her beak. Rooms can't be rented without an upfront payment. Murdoch nods with understanding, as if he could recognize that tone of voice a mile away. Right then. He turns to me. It seems like we may have to cough up the cash ourselves or wait for our benefactor to clear this up himself. I gawk at him. You think I have that much money? Well, you do work at... His voice trails off as the goose stares at us. One of the finer establishments in Echo? Do you not? Not that fine. He looks at me with skepticism at first, but then it turns into a gentle alarm. Thankfully, our patron should be coming along shortly. Ain't there a difference, typically, between what's short to us and short to Professor Tibbets? Murdoch looks to be processing that. Oh god, we could be waiting for hours. That's what I'm saying. The goose cleared her throat. Could you tell me your patron's name? I do have a booking here. Me and the Red Fox both let out sighs of relief. Oh, good. Is there a Mr. Clifford Tibbets down on the page? The goose flipped through her booklet with her bony talons. I'm afraid there isn't. Damn it. Wait. Maybe he put it down as Jedediah Coles? There's a good idea. The fox leaned into the counter, placed his paw on his hips, and gave the goose his best smile. How about it? Well, there's a name that I recognize. But no, he isn't booked either. Murdoch's smile and his eyelids drop immediately. He turns to me. We're running out of options here. I mutter under my breath. Might as well make something up. Something about me saying that makes Murdoch's eyes snap open. How about Mr. Cornelius Van Hallowick? That name sounds familiar. Wasn't he that painter Clifford mentioned? He probably shouldn't be wasting this lady's time. But the goose's eyes flick up from her book. How's that spelled? Murdoch takes a piece of paper out of his pocket. It looks slightly ripped and stained with dew. Like this. The goose leans forward, looking. That's him. I don't much like giving out keys before a down payment, but this is your lucky day. She unhooks a set of keys off the wall and sets them in the fox's paw as he puts the paper in his vest jacket away. Second floor, first down on the right. I don't want to say anything now, but I get the feeling that I need to know what the hell just happened. I keep my mouth shut for now and follow the fox up the narrow set of stairs to our room, his big tail almost hitting me in the face as we ascend. Once we're inside, I forget myself for a moment. This room is much bigger than I thought it would be considering the conditions of the inn. It's bigger than my room at the Hip. It ain't exactly lavish, but I get the feeling that it's nice for a place such as this. Only 2 beds, huh? Seems like one of us might have to share with Jeb. I know you're not going to pretend like what just happened didn't happen. Who's Corn Van Hoolick? Mr. Tibbet's real name. Or at least one that he must go by in Europa. Here. He takes a piece of paper out of his pocket and shows it to me. I squint my eyes, looking over the letters. I guess I butchered it a little. So, why is he using a fake name? It might not have been his choice. My grandparents had to change their name when they immigrated, though they didn't have to change them by very much. I think for a second, and I remember Nick mentioning something similar. Nicholas was his official name, though he still preferred Nikolai. But he asked us to keep calling him Nick to play it safe, because nobody would be able to tell the difference between that and Nick. How did you get that? It was just lying around at the site where we got attacked. I held onto it because I figured that it was important identification papers, but it slipped my mind until you brought up the fake names. Anyway. What? Either you or the professor are gonna have to share your bed with Jeb. And why is that? Because we're both huge, and you're both small. I am not small, Sam. I'm just as tall as most other men. Compared to me and Jeb, you're small. So are most people. That's besides the point. That flimsy little bed can't handle the both of us. Well, what about the doc? What about the doctor? Where exactly is he staying? And he and Jeb seem close. Maybe he'll offer him a place to stay? Sounds like you just want a bed to yourself. I just have some bad memories where I used to have to share a bedroom. We had tiny bunk beds we had to share. I'd wake up against the wall because I couldn't breathe. Why didn't you just sleep on the floor? Because I don't want to wake up with cramps. A bad start to a heavy workday. I'm about to say that he wouldn't get as many cramps if he put some muscle on his back when I hear a knock on the door. He goes to open it, and we see Cliff walk in through the door. There you are, men. I trust setting up the room wasn't too much trouble. Truth be told, they almost didn't let us in. Did you pay? I just paid off the room, so no need to trouble yourselves with those worries. Now that we are here, let us let go of our travel worries and strategize how we're going to spend our time here and how we're going to make our way back. A week, huh? That should be enough time to prep and plan a way out of here. If I walk, I could probably make it on my own to Camp Rosa. But I can't remember if they had a train station or not. I have interviews with the Meseta in the morning from 9 to noon, so we should wash up and eat breakfast before 8. Do you mind if I sit up in the closet for development? You're one step ahead of me, Murdoch. Just please make sure to keep your chemicals sealed tight before and after you use them. I only have 1 week to speak with the people here, and I wouldn't want to embarrass myself with the limited time that I have. You don't need much more from me anymore, right? Thankfully, no, since we've arrived. Though, admittedly, I would feel a lot better if you made the return trip with us as well. Cliff. I already know your circumstances. I'm merely just voicing my concern after what we went through to get here. It's not exactly safe to go wandering about all alone after we found out what's out there, is it? Okay. It's not safe much anywhere. Especially not for me. I think he's saying that at least there's nothing here that will physically harm you. Unless a couple of bounty hunters from Echo stroll in if Will decided to give them my name. He must be putting the pieces together any day by now. And he knows where we went. I don't think it's smart for anybody to travel alone after what happened. Then I'll find somebody to travel with. It's not really either of your concern. But it is our concern. Just because you're going on your own way doesn't mean that we'll stop being friends. I feel the same way. I've been through more in the last few days with this group than I ever have before in my life. Y'all getting sentimental without me? We turned to see the horse crouching to stand in the small doorway as he made his way inside. This a sewing circle or what? Just trying to keep our plans for the week shipshape. I won't be going back to Echo with the rest of you. The mood is heavy again despite the weasel's attempt at redirection. That so? We'll be worse off without you. That's surprising to hear. I don't feel like I did much aside from getting injured. You helped me dig. And you didn't panic when most people could have. Maybe even should have. Stablemen are hard to find. My smile is a bit strained. You're overselling my contributions. Not really. Just a fact of the prairie. You're all fine if at least one of you is. And you're a decent example for staying steady. Better than I was, anyway, even if it wasn't my fault. Well, Jeb is right about one thing. We're only better off with you around, Sam. Now, wait just a minute. What do you mean right about one thing? I was right about a lot of things. My animals are dead and my wagon got hacked up, and I still got you where you needed to be. We ran into problems before the attack. I am late for my arrangements because of all the extra time spent in the woods. Extra time? What is he talking about? It's only been a few days. Oh, forget it. We're lucky that we weren't turned away at the gate is all. I tell you what, Jedediah. Why don't I just pay you for the half of the trip, and you can just focus on resting up here? I'll pay for the new cart and new animals, but I'll look into finding a different guide. What do you think of that? I think it's stupid as hell considering that I gotta go back that way anyhow. You'll be hard-pressed to find somebody else short notice. I also don't think it's such a good idea. My family will want me back in town as soon as possible. Well, I don't want to pay top dollars just to get lost again. I said that wasn't my fault. It wasn't. We have multiple different experience trackers experience problems and inconsistencies. Then here's what I think. The naked truths must be that something on that path or in the forest has altered our perception of space and time. I know there's various types of hallucinogenic gases that cause people to lose track of such things, and we must have fallen victim without realizing. That, or we all have a shared disease, though I must admit that I do not feel off or feverish. Drugging isn't outside of the possibility either. Here's something simpler, Mr. Tibbets. You are an unfamiliar community in the middle of the woods full of people who either cannot help you or cannot understand you. You are paying me to take you from point A to point B, and not much else. You owe me half, and I want that amount in full tonight. Fine. The weasel mutters under his breath, putting his bag on one of the beds and scrambling through its contents. He pulls out the pre-written check and hands it over to the horse. I hope that you use this responsibly. It's mine. I'll use it how I damn well please. Come find me in a week if you plan to make good on the prior arrangement. But this time, I want you to pay up front. He ducks down and out of the room, slamming the door behind him. We could hear him trot down the stairs in a hurry. And he didn't even bother to tell us where to find him. I'm sure we'll see him around. Hard to stay hidden in a place like this. I don't like how right I am right now. I had thought that if I laid out my reasonings that he would come to understand my concerns. It isn't as simple as going from point B to point A if there are dangerous miasmas flitting about the woods. And then there's that beast to consider. If that patch of woods is its territory, does it make any sense to go traipsing around to provoke it again? Flitting ourselves to the jaws, both literal and proverbial, is what that is if he intends to take the same path backwards. Cliff? What? You don't have to diagram what you're thinking. I understand where you're coming from. That's good. But you aren't breathing enough. And Jeb is already gone. He holds his hands to his temples. I know he's gone. I just thought that if I didn't explain, you both wouldn't get it, and you'd both think that I wasn't acting in a rational capacity. I look at Murdoch to see his reaction to this. He's looking at me too. I don't think Jeb thought your thought process was questionable. But it's more like you care an awful lot about how people react to the same information that you get. You're making decisions based on how they feel. Well, isn't that what I'm supposed to be doing? What kind of message does it send when a guide isn't concerned about the safety of his passage? He's probably frustrated that you hired him for his expertise, but doubt it whenever anything goes wrong. But so many things have gone wrong. Do you really think that none of them are his fault? That the drinking was appropriate when we were that close to death's door? I think it's fine to be mad about that. But he's mixing up two different things. Yeah. What? I remember the times Jeb got drunk. They only happened after we got lost or attacked, not before. If your ideas about intoxicating gases are true, then we were already subject to an altered experience before he started drinking. The stoat's lip trembled. I see. He took off his glasses to wipe them off and then placed them back with a trembling hand. You're both right, of course. I haven't been acting as a gentleman should. I shouldn't expect others to react how I perceive that they should react. That's not fair to anybody, is it? Part of that is just management experience. Well, yes, but that's no excuse. This is my first expedition, and I should be trying harder to be on my best behavior. I don't know what I'm doing, and this is the last impression that the both of you will have of me if this is really our last week together. I'm not going anywhere. I don't have much I can add. I don't think anybody can change who they are in just a week. Unless it's something really bad. Hey, Professor? What, Samuel? I'm gonna remember you for who you are, not for who you wanna be. Well, then that's just utterly humiliating, then, isn't it? I don't think it is. But it's strange when I'm talking to somebody who's living in the tomorrow, not today. It's cruel to even bring up tomorrow. I can't be in this kind of mood when I wake up. The two of us look at one another again, and then back to Cliff. I just need some time to think. He walks out of the room, not exactly slamming the door, but not closing it gently either. I don't think he gets it. Well, at least something good came out of this. What's that? You're definitely going to get one of the beds to yourself. He clicks his tongue, ignoring my comment as he shuffles through his pack, pulling out a dark curtain and jars of liquid in a can. Maybe he'll cheer up once I develop some of these photos. I think it can help somebody see a visual representation of where they started and where they've come. Where they've come? Are you doing that in one of your nudie pictures? He gives me a look. You know that's not what I meant. That's a bitch to time correctly anyhow. Right then. I'll leave you to your secrets. He stopped shuffling through his pack and looked in my direction. And where exactly are you going? Doing like y'all said. If I'm going in a different direction, then I need to find folks who might go with me. Safety in numbers. That's a good idea for general traveling purposes. The Vox narrowed his eyes. But, truth be told, I don't think numbers will help anyone who runs across that thing. So, what will help? He taps his chin. I don't know. I guess the pessimistic answer is 2 or more groups traveling at the same starting point in different directions, isn't it? Jesus. Always another thing to try if you run out of options, but I don't put much stock in it myself. But maybe we'll stumble upon something. That is usually how we get the answers to most things, isn't it? Just make sure that you stumble first, and make sure to tell me what you learn before you bleed out. He looks away and gives me a short military salute as he busies himself with his chemicals, and I slink out the doorway. I ask directions to the few people wandering around outside, only met with avoiding gazes, head shakes, and quick words in a language that I don't understand. A raccoon points me in one direction, where I run into a trading post. The woman running it isn't much help, stating that the inn is the only place travelers coming and going tend to be during their time here. I make my way around the boundaries of the reservation at least twice. It's getting dark by now. Men with guns leer at me from wooden outposts about 6 feet into the air. I'm strange to them, no doubt, but they don't pay me much mind for long. While the south side is gated in an arc of wooden posts, the north is completely unguarded. It doesn't take me long to see why. The reservation is built upon a precipice, and its deep canyon is too steep to climb with ease, considering the rapids running below it. There's an unguarded post with a flimsy wooden gate to the west, posted before a thick tree line. I walk past the post, unsure if it's still a part of the settlement's boundaries or not. The woods here are thick with pine trees, and the sounds of the rapids are louder. I should go back, but I stop when I hear drums. They're steady, monotone beats. I see movement between the trees and see a procession of mostly adult Masetta walking in a row with the man at the front shaking a rattle. But there's also two others I recognize. There's Yiska, the bear from the trip, hitting a drum. And then there's Cliff. He's walking behind them, silent and focused, stepping to the beat of the instrument as the man in front of them all chant, beating the top of the drum. It looks like they're doing something informal, but they're carrying bags of stuff, and the chanting and the rattling seem to imply otherwise. I jump when I hear another drum. This beat is coming from behind me. I see Tsela standing at a well, looking down to hit the drum with the palm of his hands. He looks up and stops playing when he notices me looking back. What's going on? His eyes narrow and he goes back to beating the drum. A disagreement is playing out. Nothing to concern yourself with. He lets out a string of chants, then started to play his drums again. Another group of men passed by, some carrying pillows. Another a paper lamp with a wooden siding that had leaves whittled out of it. Where are they taking all that stuff? They're burying Shiloh's things. Who? He was our other companion. On the hunting trip. I think back and remember that they had mentioned traveling with another person. Is this a funeral? Not in your Christian sense, no. We bury the lost. We don't hold funerals. Shiloh's body is something that we could not recover. Couldn't his family reuse these things? I don't see the point in burying them. If they aren't with the dead, then he might come back for them. You mean like a ghost? I mean exactly a ghost. I just ain't ever heard of a ghost coming back to get his things. People pass down the things that they use all the time. Never really saw one come back for their coat racks and griddles. Perhaps this is because your culture surrounds you with tortured spirits so often that you lost the ability to notice them, or how they make you ill. I chuff. Ill? In what sense? In spirit and body. Your people have a bad relationship with the air and soil. I stopped going to church because people kept guilting me there too. Do not compare my people to your fantasies of world molded in your image. Didn't mean offense. I'm just struggling to think of what makes somebody like you much different from the preacher who'd always tell me to pray more and do better in the eyes of the Lord. The difference is that your people bend the world into your own image. I'd appreciate it if you stopped saying your people. I don't exactly claim any of this. A shadow of doubt crossed the Kit Fox face. Then what exactly do you claim? What are your roots? I stop and think for a bit. I guess I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? My parents didn't know where we come from. If my grandparents knew, they never told. We followed the law and the religion of our township, but that place and my family is practically dead to me. Yet you still claim Christendom without its congregations? I guess. So you choose to bear the weight of a movement without knowing its impact on others. You stumble in the dark, then. Hardly surprising. I still don't see what makes your faith so much better or different than mine. That's apparent. Our faith emphasizes the importance of noticing everyone's role in the balance of everything, not establishing dominion. It is the difference between speaking and listening. Or like seeing the way a river flows and taking the fish that you need from the current instead of building a dam to control where the fish must swim. What's wrong with building a dam? He twitches. There is nothing wrong with building a dam. It's just an analogy. Okay. This is stressing me out. His lips curl down. You got a lighter. He relaxes his face and looks away from me while he pulls something silver from his pocket. Sure. I take out one of the cigarettes that I've been holding onto from my pocket and I lean my head towards him. He flips it open deftly and retreats it almost immediately after the first spark and the first catch of burnt paper. Thanks. He doesn't answer, but he puts the lighter away. I inhale the smoke, hold it, and then let it all out. Anyhow, you were saying something about an argument. What's it about? I gesture in the direction of the marching procession. I thought this kind of stuff wasn't allowed here anyway. The clergy doesn't care as much about the older generation does. They know that we'll be more cooperative if they let us practice, and they're letting time and dogma do the rest of the work. You seem a lot angrier than your friend. The bear in the distance hops as he beats his drum. Yiska is not troubled by present or by the future. He lives happily that way. He is a very harmonious person. This is why he leads the first night of the Blessing Way. What's that? Mostly what it sounds like. But he would do better at times to recognize that we are surrounded by enemies and bad spirits. Like the spirit that we encountered in the woods who spilled blood. And the priest. And you and the other strangers. I'm sorry I exist. Me too. But at least it's not your fault. I rub my temple. The Enemyway is a different sort of practice. It keeps the dead away. The unnatural things that plague us. And does it work? Of course it works. Uh-huh. Why is everybody always so confident about these sorts of things? Wouldn't everybody be doing these things if they worked? Then again, I've never needed this degree of spiritual protection before I came to Echo. Maybe just faith in something is enough to make a difference. Or maybe I just keep running into prideful individuals. Show me then. He glares at me for a bit and then puts the drum beneath his arms. Not possible. But I can show you parts. He jerks his head in a direction into the woods. I follow him a little deeper until we come across a glade with another bonfire. Most of what I can show you will not bear the same meaning or sentiment to an outsider, so you won't get much out of this. He starts beating his drum with one hand, then the other, and a steady beat. When warriors return to their families, there's always the risk of bringing back ghosts with them. Then he stops again. The first reason why this isn't possible is that the ceremony doesn't take place in one location or one night. It can take part for 9 nights, alongside many other rituals. We paint the sand with dry pigment, we sing, we pray, and many bear the responsibility of moving the rattle we make from one site to another. That sounds time-consuming. Our community loses much more than time when we start to neglect this ritual. Shyla was a warrior. So are we. He's really unloading this all on me. You know, that little stoat fellow rode all the way across the sea just to hear about stuff like this. He leers at me. Yes. So he can bring it back across the sea. I shrug. So? He's a thief. Of what exactly? Of spirit and knowledge. So then, what about me? In truth, I'm telling you this because I do not think that you have the capacity to remember the information to pass along. Huh? At least not details that matter. I blink again. You know what? I think you're really rude. Or, I just understand how things work. The people who come here to study us don't want to make our lives better. They want to make us like them, or kill us. If not our forms, then our spirit. I do not have to be comfortable with this. Huh? What? Nothing, it's just... You look and sound a lot like somebody that I know right now. Who? Do you know Cynthia Sosi? For the first time, he looks genuinely curious. They are my cousins. Though the Begay and the Sose's families have not interacted for a long time. None of them live here anymore. I know one in Echo. I knew Estad and Kile. Now he's nodding. Cynthia was their daughter. That's what she was called here too. Her father converted to Christianity. Her mother did not. She traded in jewelry, and Cynthia helped her make this finery. She was a problem for the priests because the nature of this work is religious, and their power to barter in the community was great. But the day that they left was very strange. He looks like he's trying hard to remember. Her father needed medicine, but nobody would disclose the nature of his ailment. I was told that the whole family packed up for Camp Rosa, and nobody had seen them since. Echo is in the opposite direction, though. Have you been to Camp Rosa yourself? Several times. Is there a railroad? No, but Providence has one, and it's closer. Could you take me there? I don't have any business there. I'll pay you. How much? I have a banking check for $60. I could do this trip for 20 if you have something more material to offer up. Paper money is fine when we get to our destination. Isn't so good in the desert. Providence has a phone, right? So what? I could get you a phone call with Cynthia. What makes you think that I would want that? Don't you? You said that she was family. He pauses. I do. But I am also afraid of what I might find out if I do. That's an odd thing to say. Then again, family business is often odd. And more importantly, none of my business. Is that enough to offer, or do I need to think of something else? Supply the food and the water, and I will agree to this. Deal. I hold out my hand to him, and he grabs it. His grip is tight for a paw so small. It's almost painful. He lets me go when we hear something. What was that? Sounded like a whinny. Are there pack beasts nearby? Yeah, there's a ranch outside the gate. We hear another whinny. Then a startled bray and something wet. There's thrashing and galloping and slams into wood. Do they normally make those sounds? You don't think. Do not assume the worst. Something probably snuck into the pen. We rely on these beasts for transport and food. If something's wrong, then we need to tell the rancher. This way. It's a lot darker in these parts of the woods. If I try, I can make out some shapes that might be barns in the distance, but they look more like blobs to me. I feel the kit fox tug me by the cuff as he ducks, and I feel a board of a fence hit my stomach. Oof! He makes a shushing sound to me. Are we supposed to be out here? I can see enough of his face to tell that he's rolling his eyes. He scampers through the fence and I follow him mostly because I don't want to be by myself if somebody with a rifle comes across us. I stumble around looking for the direction that he went in. Here. Oh, there you are. He's leaning against something big. I think for a moment it must be a sleeping mule, but it doesn't look like it's breathing evenly. Cold wound. It wasn't emboldened enough to finish. Why's that? Could be testing the boundaries of the herd. Could have also been scared off or injured itself. We look out the pen in the woods and count more than 50 dark figures waddling around. What we might have heard was one of the pack animals smelling the wound of the other animal. Nothing to worry about then. I slack my shoulders and feel my neck relax. Thank God there's nothing out here then. Whatever it was must be gone. That's when I feel something touch me. It confuses me at first because it feels like the dainty sort of caress of a hand on my lower leg, except curls close to grip me. That's when I can feel how truly large the palm is. I yowl as I feel it yank me off my feet, slamming my back into the dirt. I open my eyes and I can see Tsela staring at me with wide eyes. And rapidly he becomes smaller. Something's dragging me. I can see the stars and the trees sweep by as I realize the speed that I'm going. Rocks and roots scrape against my shirt, ripping through, some scraping the skin. I try to look forward to see what's dragging me, but I don't see anything despite feeling that awful monstrous claw clipping into me with its nails. I think about how above the canyon the settlement is. I think about a chasm littered with bones that gets thinner and thinner the harder you're pulled. But I stop moving. I stand up and I'm out in the middle of nowhere. There's no houses nearby. No people. And when I try to stand on my left leg, it hurts. It hurts real bad. And what's worse is that I can hear something breathing. I feel that it wants me to walk. Wants me to try and make it back to town. There's nowhere to go or to hide, but back in the direction that I came from. I can still see the trail that my own body made. And I let out a yowl when I take my first step. My ankle is swelling. I'm gonna have to crawl. So I get to my knees and I cry out again, feeling the stab in my leg. Then I pull myself forward. Tears pool down my cheeks as I scramble forward, careful not to let my left foot touch the ground. I feel a hot breath on my neck. A long, spongy tongue starts to lap on my neck. And then I hear the gunshot. It's gone as if it was never there. And I see Tsela running towards me, hooking his rifle onto his back, grabbing me by the suspenders and pulling me in quick bursts. He looks right and then left, wide-eyed, almost frenzied as he takes me back to the woods. It's hard to turn my head to look left or right. Sometimes I think I hear breathing again on my right. Sometimes it's on my left. Sometimes it sounds like it's coming from the trees or from multiple places all at once. Tsela doesn't stop dragging me. Use your legs if you can. My right's twisted. Then just the one. You're too heavy to drag. We have to move faster or I'll have to drop you. Back through the gate. Back to his cabin. He slams the door and bolts the lock. He pulls me over to a rug on the ground. Show me your foot. I pull up the sleeve and he bends down, holding it with one of his paws. Don't touch it. He brushes up against the direction of the fur. Aside from the bruising, most of your skin is red, so no bleeding. Your bones are in place, but you shouldn't walk on this for several days. But I try to stand again and I feel the sharp sting in my ankle. I have to. Urgh. I only have a week to get out of this town. And I don't even want to wait that long. Tsela shakes his head. Foolish. You won't make it far on that leg. Do you have a car that could drive us? I do. So what's the problem? Something might be following you. I shake my head. You can't prove that. It's just gotta be some starving animal. I don't even believe it when I say that, but I don't want to think about any other possibility. No animal would be bold enough to come here with all of the noise and the smoke. It's something else. And it showed when your party did. I thought your group was attacked before us. Maybe it's hunting you? He mumbled something that I don't understand. We know that it will go after us at the very least. Well, I've still got to leave town. He looks out the window, craning his head. It sounded like it was bothering the animals, so it's a problem for the whole settlement now. You should tell your anthropologist friend so that he can tell the Christians. If we put together a hunting party, then we can be rid of it before it strikes. You're gonna try and kill it? Ideally. But we couldn't even see it at the last time. And it's fast. None of us are getting very far if this problem isn't dealt with. There's a thump on the door. It's sudden and forceful, like a single knock. But that's not exactly right either. Tsela stands and walks up to the door. He says something in his language. There's nobody there. Then he tries again in Albion. Who's there? A deep, guttered voice replies. Yiska? We both wait for a reply. There's a soft shove again. Yiska's there. What do you mean Yiska's there? Who is this? Another thump. This is Yiska. That sounded more like the bear this time. Are y'all both roommates? Tsela looks at me and holds up a single digit to his mouth. He turns back to the door and makes noises that I don't understand. The person at the other side of the door makes those noises back in a deeper voice. And the fox steps away. He walks over slowly to the small window and pulls the curtains over it. A shadow passes and he walks back slowly. I'm about to ask him what's going on, but he puts a hand over my mouth, giving me a taste of clay and bark. He leans close to my ear and whispers, Spirit. That confuses me. It sounded like Yiska. I try to talk again, but he shakes his head. Do not leave tonight. Do not let anybody in until morning. But what if it's somebody we know? Especially if it's somebody we know. The light behind the curtain blackens. I hear shifting sounds. Then something wet. A slow, scraping sound drags across the window. Then the shadow leaves. Again. Nobody. But what about your hunting partner? That wasn't him. He won't be back tonight. We listen for the bugs and the wind and the trace of any footsteps. But there's nothing. Get some sleep. I'll know if you try to answer the door. How's that? You make noises when you're in pain. I'll know. To be continued. Oof. So whatever it is that was basically following Samuel, or probably everyone, um, that followed them through you know, the woods slash forest, whatever it was, and attack and attack them. Basically, follow them to the settlement, and I'm surprised it didn't attack them during the whole song and stuff like that, but I guess it was, there's too many people, so I wouldn't risk it. But yeah. Huh, so I wonder what it is. And I wonder if it's going after Samuel himself or if it's going after everybody that left from Echo, meaning that it would go after Cliff, Murdoch, Avery, and Jedediah, and possibly also Tsela and Yiska. If I recall correctly, they went to sell and Echo the fish that they caught or whatever it is that they were doing. There was something about that I remember. Anyways, but yeah. So what are your thoughts on what's going on? Also, it kind of seems like Jedediah and at least Clifford are acting a little off too. So I wonder if this is, having to do with the whole hysteria thing, that even though you're not physically in the city limits, um that you're still being affected by it when it happens because you were there as soon as it was starting to ramp up. Yeah. So again, comments, write down what you think is happening, and yeah. So I guess thank you all for watching slash listening, and if you would like to play the smoke room yourself, you can find it over on itch, and you can find a direct link to it from the Echo Project Twitter page, which will be linked down in the description, as well as the Patreon, in case you want to support, the Echo Project, as well as all the ongoing, visual novels that they're doing, which is, of course, The Smoke Room and Glory Hounds at Astra in Terra, and eventually, I hope, Kamiya, as well as the newest addition to the, group called Play Your Role or something like that. I think it used to be called Know Your Role, but now it's Play Your Role, which is sort of like a Dungeons and Dragons style game where it's these people that are playing the game. And I do want to eventually read it. I don't know if you guys will be interested in it because it's actually humans, people, like actual people playing a tabletop RPG. And I don't know how it actually plays out though. So it's not so much furry as it is tabletop RPG, D&D stuff. So if you're interested in that, then I will do it, I guess, and I'll get, other people to help me, with the characters. um I do know people who apparently are interested in doing voicing. But yeah, so I guess that's it for now and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.